Sagittarius, you're not hearing this by accident. There is someone whom God is quietly removing from your life. And the reason will be almost impossible to believe. Not because you were wrong, not because they were wrong, but because something is coming, and it needs empty space to arrive. And you won't understand not until the broken pieces begin to rearrange into a picture that finally makes sense. If lately, you've felt someone slipping away from you with no clear explanation, then this message is the answer your heart has been waiting for. You will understand why that separation saved you from something far worse, something your eyes never saw coming, but God has seen all along. Not everyone who walks away from you is a loss. Some leave simply because they can no longer stay when you're stepping into a version of yourself they no longer recognize. Sagittarius, we grow up thinking that separation is something negative, a failure, a pain, an ending. But has anyone ever stopped to wonder? What if those breakups were actually the beginning of something better? There's something inside you, wild, powerful, and free, that still couldn't escape the seasons of deep attachment. You love with your whole soul, you trust with all the light you carry, and you're willing to walk beside someone, as long as they can see the vastness of the world the way you do. But then one day, they grow silent. They stop dreaming aloud. They no longer ask, "What's our next adventure?" And you start to feel cold. Not because of the weather, but because the light they once brought is fading. You try to warm them with hope, but you forget. Some people, once they've chosen to freeze their hearts, your fire only makes them step further back. They're already pulling away, and then distance begins, quietly, invisibly, without explosions. No one says the word goodbye, but the space appears, in conversations that no longer feel true, in hugs that no longer hold, in eyes that look right through you, without seeing you. Separation isn't always a slammed door. Sometimes, it's just waking up one morning, looking at the person next to you, and no longer seeing yourself reflected in their gaze. Sagittarius, you thought you failed, because you couldn't make them stay. But the truth is, God was keeping something for you by taking away something you no longer needed. Not as punishment, but as protection, disguised in the shape of loss. It wasn't a punishment, it was protection, disguised in the shape of loss. One day, you'll understand why you had to go through it. One day you'll look back and whisper to yourself, "Thank you for leaving. I was with them for 9 years. I thought it was destiny. But then I realized I had stopped dreaming the day I got with them." Every time I wanted to do something bold, their eyes, their silence, it was what killed my fire. I didn't walk away, but God pulled me out through a storm that felt like destruction. And through that, I was born again. There are things you didn't see, but God did. He saw the whispers behind your back you never heard. He saw the fake warmth behind every compliment you thought was sincere. He saw what would have happened 6 months from now if you had stayed. And he could not let that happen. So they left. Separation didn't come to destroy you. It came to rescue you. Like standing on a rotting bridge, you kept smiling, believing everything was fine. Then a gust of wind came. The bridge collapsed. You fell. You cried. You were angry. You felt betrayed by everything you believed in. But once the dust settled, you looked down and saw the abyss waiting beneath you. And when you looked to the other side, you saw a brand new road never walked before but glowing, as if waiting just for you. Sagittarius, sometimes a breakup isn't an ending. It's a divine reroute, a pivot that brings you back to the wildest, that truest version of yourself. The one you forgot, just to keep someone who was never meant to walk with you into who you're becoming. So if today you're aching because someone suddenly walked away, if you're blaming yourself for not being enough to make them stay, take a breath and let your soul remember, you are not abandoned, you are being protected. Separation doesn't break you. It opens the one door only you were meant to walk through. Real love doesn't come from someone who tries to stay, but from someone who never requires you to shrink in order to be loved. Because sometimes, separation is the last "I love you" God whispers into your life. When God removes someone from you, it isn't because you are weak. It's because you are being summoned to a path far greater than what your current vision can yet imagine. Sagittarius, have you ever wondered why breakups seem to leave you more disoriented than most? It's because you don't just love with your heart. You love with your ambition. You love with your expansion. You love someone as if you're inviting them on an endless adventure, to a place beyond maps, guided only by trust. You are the zodiac sign of souls that can't be caged, and yet, you attach so deeply to the illusion that someone could go with you all the way to the end. You believe, you give chances, you see potential in people. Not because they show it, but because you believe in what no one else dares to. Even when they go silent, you imagine it's a new kind of language. When they withdraw, you think they're just lost. When they hurt you, you believe it's because they're hurting. And you stay, not because you're naive, but because your love is noble. But Sagittarius, there comes a moment when God looks into your soul and whispers, "You've stayed long enough. Now, it's time to be set free." And he begins to loosen the invisible thread between you and them. Not through a dramatic ending, but through tiny shifts, conversations that no longer spark, promises no longer kept, plans that don't feel exciting anymore. And you, once blazing like a torch, now flickering into silence. Sagittarius, you are a soul kissed by the sun and touched by the divine. You were created to break through boundaries, to inspire, to go further than what's familiar or safe. But deep inside your heart, there's a fear you rarely admit. If I let them go, who will still be there? You're afraid you'll never find that kind of connection again. Afraid of being alone. You're afraid that everything you invested in that person will turn out to be meaningless. And what you fear the most is the sinking feeling that you were wrong about them. But what you don't yet realize is that being wrong was necessary so you could return to what was truly right for your soul. There's a paradox about Sagittarius that few people truly understand. You are the sign of freedom, yet you're the one who gets stuck the deepest in relationships that aren't worthy of you. Not because you can't see the truth, but because you always believe they could become better if you just love them long enough. But sometimes, patience can't save someone. Only God knows when a soul needs to be unhooked, before they drown with someone who was never meant to stay afloat with them. The departure you're going through or being led into isn't meant to harden you. It's meant to make you lighter, so that you can finally board the next train without the baggage of someone who refused to journey forward with you. And you know what, Sagittarius? There is a divine reason why this message is finding you now. It's because your energy has been held hostage by someone who no longer aligns. It may be someone you love deeply, someone you once believed would walk with you till the very end. But now, they are only the echo of a chapter already closed. You are evolving, and they are not. You're opening your heart, and they stay silent. You're willing to rebuild, and they never reach for the first brick. You are alive, but living inside a relationship that already died. And that's why God is gently closing this door for you. Not to punish you, not to leave you alone, but to clear the path for something far more extraordinary than you've even dared to imagine. Look back on the road you've traveled. You have loved deeply. You have tried with your whole heart. You held on to hope until the very end. And now, you deserve to heal. You deserve to be met by a soul who recognizes the brilliance you carry. Someone who doesn't make you question your worth. Someone who doesn't just hold your hand but looks with you toward the same horizon. Sagittarius, you are the wanderer. But this time, your next journey isn't about going out to find something new. It's about returning to yourself. And the first step on that path is letting go of what was never meant to stay. A breakup doesn't mean you failed. It means you were handed back your freedom, a freedom you should never have had to sacrifice for anyone. God doesn't always speak through thunder. Sometimes, he whispers through the smallest things over and over until your soul can no longer ignore them. Sagittarius, maybe right now you're asking, I'm not even sure if this is divine intervention or just life falling apart. You feel confused. You still care. You haven't figured out where destiny ends and disappointment begins. But let me tell you, there are signs that God sends to help you walk away, softly but undeniably. And if you've seen any of these, your heart has known the truth long before your mind allowed it. They still reply, but it feels empty. You speak with passion, with light, and they return only silence or vague words. You used to be the fire warming this winter-bound relationship. Now it feels like you're talking to a frozen wall. Not because they're too busy, but because their spirit has already left. This is one of the earliest and most painful signs, because it doesn't come with shouting, it comes with quiet withdrawal. Sometimes you dream of being lost in a city you've never seen. Sometimes you see yourself standing at a fork in the road as they walk away without a word. And there are nights you wake up with tears on your face, without knowing why. Don't ignore those dreams. The universe always speaks in symbols. When your soul is enduring something that no longer resonates, your subconscious is often the first to raise its voice. Dreams are God's whispers when you can no longer hear him while awake. Some dream of being left alone in a desert. Some see a hand reaching from afar. That is not a coincidence. True love never asks you to compete for a place in someone's heart. But lately, you've started to feel like you need to be more worthy. To say the right thing. To stay quiet when you're sad. To shrink yourself just so they don't get tired of you. You're becoming a smaller version of yourself just to keep them from walking away. And in that shrinking, you are slowly losing the strongest parts of who you are. This is one of the clearest signs. When love makes you afraid to fully be yourself, it's no longer love. A job offer far away. A project that demands a change of environment. A disruption that forces you to move. The universe always uses circumstances to shift you away from where you no longer belong. Sudden changes in geography, work, or daily rhythm are not random. They are your pre-printed ticket out of a bond that's been draining you, but you haven't had the courage to break yourself free from. You wake up and your heart feels hollow, even though nothing specific has happened. You sit beside them and feel more alone than when you're by yourself. You smile on the outside, but deep inside, there's a crack growing just a little wider each day. That's your soul sending an emergency signal. I'm depleted. I need release. Not all sadness is depression. Some sadness is simply the slow fading of a connection that has already expired. You feel sadness, then blame yourself. You feel lonely, then say, maybe I'm just too sensitive. You get angry, then apologize. If you constantly deny your own feelings just to protect the relationship, you're no longer in love. You're in survival mode, protecting a wound instead of protecting your soul. And that is when God begins to gently shake you awake. Sagittarius, if you've seen one or many of these signs, please don't think you're failing. You're being called back to the brighter path, back to the truest version of who you are, back to a kind of love that doesn't require you to exhaust yourself just to keep it alive. A divine love will never make you feel wrong for simply being who you are. And if your current relationship makes you feel guilty for being honest, then maybe it's time you return to being a Sagittarius, bold, free, and no longer asking permission to shine. God doesn't remove someone from your life to punish you. He removes them to make space for something or someone you've never even dared to wish for. Sagittarius, you may not realize it yet, but the miracle begins the moment you stop clinging to what's no longer aligned with your soul's frequency. When a connection falls apart, the first thing you see is emptiness. But if you look closer, you'll start to see light filtering through the cracks. A story that began with tears and ended with an honest smile. I once received a message from a Sagittarius named Aaron. She had been in an 8-year relationship. It was deep, loyal, unbreakable, or so she thought. But after the pandemic, everything shifted. He grew distant. Conversations dissolved into silence. Aaron tried everything, even personal therapy, just to save the connection. But one day he simply said, "I just don't feel anything anymore." 5 words, and her world collapsed. Aaron thought she couldn't survive. She cried in her car, she lost sleep, she lost her sense of connection with life. Until one day, she stumbled upon a message. If someone walks away without carrying love with them, then God has been standing beside you for much longer than you knew. She began to write again, to learn again, to travel, alone, like a true Sagittarius. And in a healing workshop in Bali, she met a man who was also rebuilding from his own ruins. 2 souls who had once been broken, 2 journeys that had once closed, 2 wounds that once felt like destiny. And they began again, not as 2 people rescuing each other, but as 2 flames reigniting themselves, together. Aaron had lost everything. But in the end, she found something she never even dared to believe was real. A love that didn't require her to shrink in order to survive. Not all miracles wear the face of another person. Some miracles come from within you. A Sagittarius man named Marcus fell into deep depression after his wife had an affair. He withdrew from the world. He stopped writing, stopped speaking, stopped sharing. Each day became a struggle against the question, what did I do wrong? One night he dreamt he was stranded in a desert. No one around, no water, no shade. But at the edge of the horizon, there was a mountain. He walked, not because he knew what waited there, but because he couldn't stay in a place that had already died. He woke up and began to write again. Healing blogs, fragments of journal entries from the voice of a broken father, a man who was no longer chosen. And then someone read his words, then 10, then thousands. He became an author, not for fame, not for applause, but because the pain he once thought would kill him became the very language that saved others. You never truly know what's coming for you until you find the courage to release what's been holding you back. Sagittarius, you are the zodiac of hope. But sometimes, hope misplaced can blind you to what's right. Let me say this clearly. You were never rejected. You're being repositioned. It's not a loss. It's an upgrade. It's not the end of a soul connection. It's the closing of an old script so you can step into the lead role of the next chapter in your life. You may not see what's ahead, but don't worry. Your true guide isn't in the answers you're searching for. It's in the honesty you allow yourself to feel right now. The first miracle isn't meeting someone new. It's the moment you look back at yourself and finally say, I am worthy. You forgave too much. Not because they deserved it, but because you believed if you loved hard enough, things would get better. But all it did was pull you further away from yourself. You stepped back too far. You compromised for too long, for someone no longer tuned to the frequency of your soul. Now is the time to take back your dreams, to reclaim your laughter, to resurrect the plans you put on hold just because you were waiting for someone else to walk them with you. And when you begin to do that, even slowly, even with trembling hands, the universe opens its gates. You begin attracting people with real, honest energy. People who don't make you feel like you have to earn love. People who see your light, not to hide under it, but to shine beside it. God never takes someone from you without preparing something extraordinary to arrive in their place. And if you're still in the middle of heartbreak, please know, just because the miracle hasn't arrived yet, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Sagittarius, there are reasons God didn't reveal to you when you were on your knees. Because if He told you then, you wouldn't have learned what needed to be learned. And you wouldn't become the person you are now becoming. And one day, you'll wake up feeling lighter than you have in months. You'll make your coffee, open old letters, read the texts that once tore your heart apart. And instead of crying, you'll smile. Not because they were funny, but because now you can finally see it clearly. Oh, this is how God rescued me in a way I once mistook for betrayal. You'll start to uncover unbelievable truths, that the one you thought would stay forever was hiding things all along, that they weren't honest, even in the smallest ways, that the love you received was never as deep as the love you gave. You'll realize how many times you stayed silent to keep the peace, while they used your silence as a weapon to avoid treating you kindly. And you'll understand you loved too wholeheartedly someone who never planned to stay. Or maybe the truth won't be about them at all. It'll be about you. You'll realize how many times you shrunk yourself just to fit inside a love that never made space for you. You'll count the dreams you put aside just to keep them near. You'll remember how often you dimmed your light just so they wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But you'll remember one thing: the light inside you was never meant to apologize. It was meant to guide, to warm, to liberate. If God needs you alone for a season, to bring the right person at the right time, would you dare to let go of what's no longer right? That's a soul-level challenge not everyone is brave enough to face. Because the old is familiar. The old feels safe. The old gives you that illusion that at least someone is still here. But the old is also what stopped your growth, stopped your flight, stopped you from being you. And so, God must intervene. A listener once shared a story I'll never forget. Her name was Jenny. I was in a peaceful relationship, she said. Not terrible, not amazing, but I always felt like something inside me was slowly dying, quietly and unnoticed. He didn't do anything wrong, but he never tried to understand me either. I thought it was safe love, but it wasn't. It was a love that made me slowly forget who I used to be. Then one day, he left, no real reason, and she fell apart. But just 6 months later, she returned to her old passions, painting, traveling, leading healing workshops. And then she met the man who's now her husband, a man who loved her scars, not the mask she once wore. If he hadn't left, she told me, I might have lost my true self forever. Jenny ended with a line so soft, but I know you'll understand it. Losing the wrong person was how I was blessed to keep the truest parts of me. Sagittarius, God never places you in a season of loneliness without meaning. Every separation, every silence, every sleepless night is a journey not back to someone else, but back to you. You are the sign of expansion. No one was born to stay small, especially not you. But you stayed still for too long, for someone who was never meant to hold you back. You said no to adventures, not because you didn't want them, but because you were afraid of leaving them behind. But here's what you must remember. The one meant to walk beside you will never ask you to stop walking. And when you let go, when you finally say, I accept this departure as a sacred part of my journey, that's when the miracle begins. Not instantly, not the next day, but piece by piece, the fragments will start falling into place. You'll meet someone whose eyes don't judge, but see you. You'll wake up and feel yesterday's ache begin to soften. You'll smile and ask yourself, why did I ever think I couldn't live without them? And then, on a quiet, ordinary day, in a small cafe or beneath a golden sunset by the sea, you'll have a moment of brilliant clarity. You look back at the road you've traveled and whisper to the universe, thank you for taking them away from me that day. Because now you'll finally understand that unbelievable reason for the separation was the greatest gift your soul ever received. A gift wrapped in loss, sealed with tears, and only the brave get to unwrap the miracle inside. And when you open it, you'll find freedom. You'll find truth. You'll find light. Are you ready? If you've made it this far, Sagittarius, then maybe your soul already knows the answer. You are not abandoned. You are being guided. God doesn't need you to understand the reason right now. He just needs you to believe that you are not walking away from something worthless. You are rising beyond the frequency that could no longer hold your light. And if you let go today, you will soar higher than you ever thought you could. Sagittarius, you didn't lose by letting go. You didn't fail by choosing yourself. You're simply honoring the path your soul has always known, even if you've forgotten it until now. Don't be afraid of the space this separation leaves behind, because from that emptiness, light begins to pour in. You loved deeply, and that was never a mistake. Set yourself free from what is no longer held by love, only by habit. And trust, every departure that comes at the right time is always a divine return in disguise. If this message has touched something in you, leave a comment or share your story. Your words might be the light for another Sagittarius still walking through the dark. And don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell, so you don't miss a single message that the universe may be trying to send you at the exact right time. You are not alone, and you were never left behind.